Let's get straight to our Margaret Brennan, who was in that briefing room. And Margaret, you questioned General McMaster. For our viewers who may just be joining us, recap sort of the questions that General McMaster was getting and how you responded to them.
Well, General McMaster, who is the National Security Adviser to the President, someone who would have briefed the President before his meeting with the Russians and someone who sat in on that meeting with the Russians, came out to answer questions and, given his status, should have some credibility on the matter. However, there has been some parsing of exactly his denial of this story and how he worded it yesterday, which was he denied that there were any sources and methods that the intelligence community or our intelligence sharing partners used to gather this information, which we understand was in relation to a threat from ISIS, in a way that could have compromised national security. And General McMaster has flatly denied that. Today, from the podium, he wouldn't go farther in terms of saying unequivocally that no classified information was shared, which is really what the focus of that Washington Post story was yesterday, that inappropriate information, sensitive information was shared in a way that could compromise one of our intelligence sharing partners. He was repeatedly asked, was the information classified? He wouldn't answer that. He said it wasn't appropriate to do so. But at the same time, said that they were very uncomfortable with the fact that this leak had happened in the first place. So that raises further questions about if this was wholly appropriate, which was a phrase that McMaster used repeatedly to describe the President's disclosure here. Then why was it viewed as so sensitive that reporting of it and sharing of it with U.S. intelligence agencies after the fact was highlighted here? General McMaster said he couldn't necessarily speak for his colleague, who at the conclusion of that meeting picked up the phone and alerted the intelligence agencies that this conversation had happened, which is really what kicked off some of the alerts within the intelligence community and made this a news story. That not everyone within the administration agrees whether that conversation was wholly appropriate, but you heard today National Security Advisor defending it.
And Margaret, he spoke a little bit about what the topic was. He said that this is information that was available through open source reporting. But what did he say?
Well, what we know from the President's own tweets this morning is that, as the President characterized it, he said his motivations were humanitarian. He referenced a threat to a terror threat here and mentioned threats to airlines. From the podium, General McMaster wouldn't discuss it. That's why I asked, was this information that was shared with the Russians also shared with our allies, those who have been looking at a new threat from terror groups like ISIS to airliners flying internationally? He wouldn't directly answer it, but repeated again and again and again that some of this was wholly appropriate to be shared and it didn't compromise sources, methods, or any partners here. He characterized this as routine. He said there was an overabundance of caution, perhaps, that motivated some within the intelligence community to be concerned in the first place, but really tried to play this down. He said the premise of the Washington Post story was false. There was no lapse here in national security. But it did seem that, without really directly answering the question, that General McMaster acknowledged that this was a decision made by the President in the moment, that it wasn't necessarily a strategic one.
Right, Margaret. In fact, he said, General McMaster, he made the decision in the context of the conversation, and General McMaster going on to say the President wasn't even aware where the intelligence, where the source of the intelligence came from. So for people who are watching this and who are watching these press briefings, what we're left with is a President of the United States on the spur of the moment sharing information with, let's face it, I mean, we can call Russia an ally in the sense that there are certain policy issues that we agree with Russia on, but for the most part, many would say that Russia is an enemy of the United States. He's sharing this information, spur of the moment, and he's not even aware where the information is coming from.
Right. He wasn't aware of the provenance of the information. The reason that matters here is, according to the Washington Post and other news agencies and their reporting, is that the foreign source of this information could be at risk. And in fact, the flow, the sharing of that information with the United States could now be cut off as a result of this unplanned disclosure. That is the concern, and that is the fear of what could be the consequence here rather than the legalities of it. And McMaster was trying to sort of tamp down some of the controversy around it. But Vlad, you put your finger on why this could actually have some bigger impact beyond the question of whether or not this should have been done. Does it in any way hurt our intelligence sharing with partners who we need, frankly, in facing what is a transnational terror threat? When it comes to the Russians, I should say, at the end of the Obama administration, they too were looking at intelligence sharing with Russia against terror threats. However, that was a planned strategy that was being negotiated ad nauseum by John Kerry and others with the Russians. What you heard General McMaster describe, as Vlad, you just paraphrased, was more of a spur-of-the-moment disclosure that was not planned and without full appreciation of the provenance of the information or what impact it could have.
All right, Margaret Brennan reporting from the White House. Margaret, we note today that Sean Spicer will not be holding an on-camera briefing, so I'm expecting that during the briefing that he does hold with White House reporters, we'll be speaking to you later in the day. Okay.